Our today webinar is about workplace burnout, right? And it is based on the insights and feedback we got from employees who actually use Oxyzn as our employee well-being platform, which is our go-to place when we actually want to get access to insights when it comes to employee experience, engagement, and behavior. Now, in terms of our today webinar, you might be wondering, who is this webinar for? So first of all, it is for employees who struggle with burnout and chronic stress and anxiety, right? And the second group of people that are invited and are more than welcome to be here and participate are HRs who would like to support this type of employees. Now, for those of you who don't know me, let me briefly introduce myself, guys. So I'm Alexandra Kafka. I'm the founder of Oxyzn and Urban Yoga Lab. I'm a former PR executive and a corporate well-being expert. And also I'm a burnout survivor. 5 years ago, I experienced burnout while I was at work. And this was something that changed my life forever, right? So maybe this is why I'm so passionate about this specific topic, who knows? So for the last couple of years, I have traveled to over 40 countries around the world to immerse myself in different cultures in order to access evidence-based well-being tools to hack sustainable high performance via mindfulness. So I was traveling for 2 years, visiting and spending time in Buddhist monasteries, homeless centers, retreat centers in places like Thailand, Cambodia, Philippines. And when I came back to London in 2020, I launched Urban Yoga Lab with one single mission: to give access to evidence-based well-being tools to thousands of employees around the world to radically upgrade their well-being and mental health. Now, my second passion is to help businesses discover new ways of becoming an employer of choice. And this has led me to actually launch Urban Yoga Lab in 2020. Up to this day, we have delivered our services to more than 60 global brands all over the world, like Royal Bank of Canada, Soho House, Conrad Hilton Resorts, Wells Fargo, and so on and so forth. Now, in terms of Oxyzn, our platform, this platform is thanks to the great success we had with Urban Yoga Lab. We actually decided to digitize, productize our services, and now we offer those via sophisticated employee well-being ecosystem, which is called Oxyzn. It's our go-to place when it comes to well-being, employee well-being, and mental health. So I also want to introduce today an amazing speaker, and his name is Reg Amoah. And let me also, guys, as I introduce Reg, just to share with you the slides, because it's good as I walk you through the presentation to also let you see the slides. So Reg is an equality and diversity expert. He is a professional, has been working with a number of global organizations, such as Taylor Wacing, Northern Rose Fulbright, Omnicom Media Group, and many others. He has developed initiatives such as work experience and sponsorship programs to help improve representation of people from Black heritages and minority ethnic groups. Reg combines 7 years of diversity and inclusion and CSR delivery and corporate employers with the insights gained from delivering social inclusion programs for social housing residents earlier in his career. He has leveraged this experience to help improve understanding within the corporate world of how to both mitigate the barriers people from underrepresented demographics face and educate on the value that diversity brings to organizations and operational teams. It's such a pleasure to have you here, Reg. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for inviting me, Alex.
It's such a pleasure. And you know what? It's very interesting because the way we actually met each other was actually during a private HR event we delivered last January at the All Bright Members Club. And it was very, very interesting because we had that amazing conversation. Actually, you initiated this conversation, and you spoke to me. You spoke to me about diversity representation when discussing well-being. And I remember that we had a panel of speakers, and I feel like the panel of speakers we had didn't represent diversity and inclusion to the fullest, and it was so great that you actually highlighted that. But can you tell us why this is so important?
Yeah, so representation is important because people really need to see themselves represented to kind of buy into something. So, you know, I came to the event because it was called, it seemed interesting, urban yoga. And when people say urban, sometimes they usually mean black. So I was like, oh, this could be black yoga. What's this all about? So I came along. And then usually I go to these things and I might be the only black person or the only black man in the room. And that was pretty much how it was. And then the panel, obviously talking about some sort of well-being, and that does impact everybody, but it impacts people differently. So, so for myself as a black person, I might have well-being issues, but there may be additional issues. So things like not feeling like I belong or being the only one in the room. There might be things that I've faced before I've even got to work in terms of in my life before now, being stereotyped, not being trusted, etc. So if I now see someone on the panel who can speak to that experience, I have more confidence that they kind of know what they're talking about. Yeah, and it's, you know, it's not just about ethnicity. It could be other areas of diversity which you might even see, like social class. You know, if you're from a working class background, your voice sounds a certain way, and people will just hear you and not have confidence in you because you speak with a regional accent. So there's so many layers to these differences. Or, you know, you come from another country. You know, people who might speak 3 or 4 languages, but they speak with a slight accent. People are going to sort of question their ability in some way. So if you have a range of people on a panel, then you can actually speak to these different experiences, because the solutions may have to be tailored, because some people might need additional support and not just something that's generic and is one size fits all.
I totally agree with you. And I mean, that conversation was so enlightening and so eye-opening. And it made me actually realize that there are so many challenges when it comes to diversity and inclusion, and when it comes to trying to create a more inclusive workplace. And given that this month is the diversity and inclusion month and the stress awareness week, this is why the first half of our presentation today is going to be a mini interview, and the second half of our webinar today is going to be a presentation. Now, given that burnout is such a hot topic, we are going to approach it today from a diversity and inclusion kind of angle. Both Reg and me, we are going to share with you some insights and best practices and kind of a background information of how other organizations see this topic. So that leads me to my next question, which actually is, what do you think, Reg, what you have seen that are the key challenges when it comes to an organization trying to create a more inclusive environment?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest challenges is that lack of awareness. So I think historically people would kind of leave a lot of their personality at home and just come to work. And then people only sort of revealed part of themselves. So you didn't really know a lot about people beyond what you saw, right? So then when you're an organization, you can only really deliver to the, if you like, the basic denominator, so the default setting. But now things are moving in a different direction where, you know, we're collecting a lot more data. We're providing platforms for people to kind of speak about their circumstances, their identity, and therefore we're getting a lot more information. So the approach that we can take in terms of D&I can be a lot more tailored. And that's the whole point of D&I, is that the differences are then acknowledged. And so therefore you can be included. Yeah. And a lot of that comes from understanding the cost of difference. Yeah, so if you don't understand the cost, then you can't mitigate that. And I think that's where that's where the progress is being made. And that inclusive environment we create means that it then feels safer for more people to come forward and say, yeah, these are my circumstances, these are my differences. And as you go on, the service that you provide in terms of HR or wellbeing services, they become a lot more, you know, they become more fit for purpose because they're flexible enough to cater for all the different experiences and circumstances of people that are within your organization.
Amazing. I mean, I totally agree with you, Reg, and I love the way you approach this specific topic. I also want to mention that for those who just joined, we are talking about employee burnout, and we approach this topic from a diversity and inclusion kind of angle. Now, I just want to say that both Reg and we do want to be interrupted, guys. So that means that please pop some questions in the chat, and feel free to share your own tips, your own experiences, and your own questions, because the way we see this webinar and this presentation today, our own intention is to create a forum where we actually exchange ideas. So feel free to drop in the comments any ideas, suggestions, questions, and my team they're all here. They're going to make sure that we respond back to you on all your questions and every point you make in the comments. And as I always say, those kind of webinars, they are not just a one-way thing, right? So my next question when it comes to burnout, Reg, is what are the signs and symptoms of burnout among employees who specifically for those employees who come from diversity and inclusion groups?
Right, okay, yeah. So what you can find in terms of people who work in sort of D&I groups, sometimes they're called networks or resource groups, they will have the characteristics of that group. So because of that, they will almost want to go harder. They want to work harder to ensure that, because it means so much to them, right? So if it's, say, you know, Black History Month, so, you know, I experienced this myself, Black History Month, wanting to really push forward, get things done. And, you know, you end up putting so much into it. So you have almost like a peak of productivity. And then once you've passed that period, you kind of just drop and you're just like knackered, burnt out. So you imagine sort of going on turbo, the turbo's gone, and then you're just kind of at a low level. So that's so being fatigued is like a big indication. Also, it may be the person has like a poor work-life balance, so everything becomes about work. And so you're on this, you know, this project, everything goes into it, and suddenly it's gone, and you're kind of lost in terms of what do I do now? Another symptom, I think, would be there tends to be like a lack of structure. So what would happen is that then leaves space for someone to throw their everything into it, because the work isn't divided in a way, you know. So sometimes with the resource groups, there isn't, people are doing it sort of on the side of their desk, so in addition to their day job. So therefore, it's kind of like someone's volunteering their time here or there, and it may be that it's not evenly balanced. And so you just end up putting a lot of your energy into something, and then you get burnt out and end up stepping away. Whereas a better way to do it is to have like a structure, so maybe a committee that then can divide up the work between people, and then you extend the offer to the wider community so that people can come in and do little bits of work. And so people just do bits and pieces here, and then you kind of rotate the committees so that people contribute for a period of time and they leave. So, you know, so I think I've probably gone further into the question there, but you just asked me about the symptoms.
Yes, but it's a great the way you approach this topic, because that resonates with so many HRs I get to meet on a daily basis, and they are like, many HRs in the DI sector, they're like, you know what, Alex, we do want to try and go above and beyond because we're passionate about specific topics. But at the same time, we don't want this to ironically end up leading to burnout, right? And how many people actually experience this is really alarming. And I'm so glad that you raised awareness about this topic, Reg. So that leads me to my next question, which is about your personal story, and more specifically, how have you experienced the intersection of mental well-being and DI?
Yeah, so similar to as I was saying in that last question, you know, there were certain things that mattered a lot to me. So I was passionate, I would go above and beyond. So I guess the example I might use was when my first kind of full-time corporate job, if you like, was at Norton Rose, it's like a global law firm. And because of that, there's people from all over the world, but in terms of like my background, a sort of working class guy from East London, black guy as well, there wasn't many people like me there. So when it came to Black history, this was like my time to really like try and make change. I thought, yeah, let's have an event, like a quiz night that we can get people to come to. So it's not only Black people, we can teach people about our heritage and our stories, and then have a kind of big high profile event where people will come to. So I had all these plans, but I think people around me were like, you know, slow down, you know, it's early days, but I just wanted to get on and do it. So I was then super passionate. I took on a lot of work myself because people were a bit reluctant. I made everything happen, put everything together. We had 2 great events. I got lots of sort of compliments about the event. But then the end of October, coming into November, I was just knackered. I couldn't move. So I had the combination between like my identity or my diversity was that I put so much pressure on myself because I needed to really get this over the line. I had like constant, I suppose you call it imposter syndrome. Am I really meant to be here? You know, when people weren't going along with what I was saying, I was like, I need to prove them right or prove them wrong. Rather, they don't trust me. They think I'm just I don't know, a Black Cockney from East London who doesn't know what he's talking about. But so I kept like going in hard. And I think eventually I needed to go to the employee assistance program. So I got the support was there, but it was quite generic. So when I was going to see the lady, like the therapist, I was almost having to kind of educate her. So she was saying to me things like, you know, what you do is very much wound up in who you are. Like, do you think you could separate the two, or would you want to do something else? Yeah. And I was like, no, I'm here because of that, not in spite of it. Like I want to do this role so I can make things better for other people coming after me. I'm not trying to find an easy way out. I want to know how to kind of cope with this. So I kind of had to explain to her why mental health was so important to me. You know, so there was a lot of kind of, I guess it was like me educating her at the same time while she was trying to support me. So that's when I started to think that it's better to have diversity in terms of those sort of solutions.
I see. And I can definitely relate to this topic of diversity and inclusion and burnout, because I recall myself working in a PR firm here in London, like 5 years ago. Every time I was entering the office, I was surrounded by people with this beautiful English accent, and I was feeling so much like an outsider, like I wasn't belonging there, right? And because of that reason, I was going above and beyond to prove myself. I was working long hours. I was sacrificing my weekends. I was ready to do everything to prove myself. So I can definitely resonate with the story you shared with us earlier, Reg. And that leads me to my last question for today in terms of our conversation, which is, what are some of the practical ways that we can ensure our workplace as healthy and an inclusive environment in general?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the responsibility for that is shared. Yeah, so it's partly the organization and the managers, and partly us as individuals. So anytime like you come together with the organization, say a one-to-one or however that interaction goes, it's a negotiation. So on the side of individuals, we need to kind of negotiate boundaries for ourselves. Yeah. And so obviously the organization through the managers want us to achieve certain objectives. And we also want to achieve those objectives, but we want to do it in a way that is not detrimental to us, which then can be detrimental to the organization. So you have to see this as a negotiation. So in terms of, this is what I can do, this is what I can manage. I can maybe do more, but this is the kind of support I need. So there's going to be some introspection, yeah, thinking, what is the support I need, and being able to be confident enough to provide this information. And I think managers tend to respond better when you actually come in with your own solutions, as opposed to just giving them your problem. Yeah, and so that's one side of it. Yeah. On the flip side of it, the organization needs to create that kind of inclusive, more compassionate environment. So it's kind of inviting people to provide more information, data, and people can sometimes get a little bit worried about providing the data. But if you explain to people, this is why we need to know about, your circumstances, your identity, so that we can ensure that whatever we provide gives you the best opportunity to thrive in this environment. Yeah. So once you start having those kind of honest conversations, the outcomes are better. There's, that engenders trust, and then you believe that people have your back and you will produce your best work, so everybody wins.
That's such a great point, Reg. And I totally agree with you that psychological safety and inviting people to be open and having those kind of conversations, it's really so important.